I think I think that God has so designed it that our pain would become purpose. And I think I think that God has so designed it that our pain would become purpose. And those life lessons would become some of the greatest moments of our lives. So whether it be loss, whether it be transformation, whether it be faith, whether it be love or purpose, all of these things combined together becomes the narrative that all of us have. There is a commonality about our story, and it is that we get to have one. And not only that we get to have our stories, but we get to own our stories, and we also get to tell our stories. So let's look at loss for a bit. For example, for me, I think my entire life I've had moments, I've had seasons of loss, and oftentimes those seasons of loss were overwhelming, and I think for me, as I mature, I begin to go back to those experiences. And when we talk about our narratives, many times we do not want to go back. We do not want anyone to know, especially when our stories involve shame and guilt. And, I don't know if there's a story that any living being, any human being has that does not entail some degree of shame. Shame is a part of the evolutionary process. We inherit shame. There are times when we are experiencing shame that we have no idea where it came from, because it's somewhat is passed down through our DNA, passed down through our bloodline, and we experience that shame. I've seen shame demonstrated in such a way where it becomes a pattern, it becomes a family pattern. And I feel like the Lord wants to deliver us from the shame and guilt that we sometimes never, we were never the persons who brought it onto ourselves. And I want to simplify this as much as possible. We we experience the emotion of it, but we have never been in the situation. And I feel that the Lord wants to deliver us from this. So when we talk about loss, when we talk about shame, when we talk about guilt, these are part of our human expression in terms of the journey. And as we traverse the landscape of our destiny, we will have these experiences sometimes that really becomes our personal event. And yes, a personal event should have been something that you celebrate, but most times we don't understand the power of these experiences, how they are molding us, and how they are shaping us, and how they are preparing us for the future and for the destiny that oftentimes we cannot see. So, some time back, a few years ago, or many years ago, I went to a conference in Trinidad, and the woman of God, I went there to have a wonderful time, a wonderful experience. I feel that it was a season where a lot of things were unfolding for me, but these things or experiences can turn up at a time, especially when we have these conflicts and we have these things within us that are not resolved. They pop up anytime they want to pop up, and sometimes they pop up in our body language. I'm not the perfect person to talk about body language, but the truth is that our expressions, even the way we protect ourselves, even the way we guard ourselves, are really, really telling a story. But I remember being in that meeting, and she called me and she said, I'm going to stand in proxy for all the people who have hurt you. The thing about shame and guilt is that when we look at Adam, when we go back to the Bible and we look at Adam, we see where they hid because they were afraid. They hid because they were ashamed. And this is one of the things, and I'm not a psychologist, but I have common sense. This is one of the things that shame does to you. It causes you to hide, it causes you to become small or hidden. And I remember when she said, I stand in proxy for all the pain, for all the people who have hurt you. And that weekend turned into a torrential kind of rain in respect of how much I cried and I bawled my heart and my eyes out because, you know, I believe to some degree that it is illegal for us to carry all that we have carried for the many years and the many um, seasons that we've carried these things for. And when she said that, when she was able to stand in proxy for all that my heart felt and all that was happening in me, the conflict that was happening in me, I feel like that was a moment of transformation where I could let go of all that I had lost. I think the way I tell my story is that there was a moment when I felt like, you know, I felt guarded and I felt angry that things and people were taking from me. And, I reflect on it and I smile because I remember at one point we were living at a house and I had my room and I had um, my little space, and then my children, they would come in and they would, watch TV and all of that. And I felt like there was nowhere for me. There was no space for me. And you would say, "Oh, you're a mother, etc. You should at least be happy that they are around." Yes, but when things have been taken from you were young, you feel that there is a sense of violation, and many of us, we protect ourselves because we do not want anybody else to come and to violate us. We don't want anybody else to come and take anything from us without permission. And the reason why I tell my story, or the reason why I share my narrative, is that I want people to be liberated. I feel that there is such a freedom when we're able to speak about the things that happen to us. And yes, we may talk to a counselor, a therapist, we can talk to a friend, but there are some of us who the experiences that we have had, it was because we needed to help somebody else that we've had those experiences. And so that moment was a moment of transformation for me because I finally could have let go. I finally could have, you know, stopped being so guarded. And I finally could breathe. It's almost as though for so many years, I'm talking about maybe about 13 years ago, thereabout, and I felt like for all my life I was not breathing. And for that moment, I had the opportunity to breathe for the first time. And I have talked about things that have happened to me in the past. I have talked, I don't know how liberated I am to say everything because there is still an element of you who wants to guard uh, your family and And it's not that my immediate family or, even my relatives, close relatives, are to be blamed for anything. But you kind of, in a certain way, live their shame, live their emotions, and so you kind of want to guard them from even saying what you really, really, really want to say. So the transformation may be, that moment of triumph, that moment when you can finally say, I was there and this happened to me, but here comes the Lord and here comes the Holy Spirit, in this moment, causing all of what happened to bring about this transformation in my life. I'm having a moment of triumph because what was meant to kill me has only made me stronger. What was meant to destroy me has become purpose. And so when I talk about purpose, and when I believe that the whole ministry of purpose was birthed from the whole the moments and the seasons of pain, the seasons of hurt, the seasons of shame, the seasons of guilt, that you feel. Sometimes things happen to you, especially in your childhood, and you don't know whether or not it was your fault. You sometimes own it because you feel that if you were not in that place the time you were there, then things would not have happened to you. So, I feel that the Lord wants to bring us to a place where we can really, really relax. We can really, really let down our hair and tell our stories, that somebody else will be delivered, and that somebody else will be set free, and somebody else will, of course, experience transformation.